What practice really is. I want to discuss something here about practice. I don't just mean Dharma practice, but any kind of practice, like learning to play a musical instrument or whatever. Of course, this is also true for Dharma practices, like sitting meditation, Tonglen, which means exchanging yourself for others, and so on. Practice, almost by definition, can be boring, so it might help to learn a little more about what happens when we practice anything. And I'm going to be kind of free, tell stories and all that kind of stuff here for a bit, so hang on. Now, I first learned about the true nature of practice back in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the 1960s when I guess I was propelled out of my body by an LSD trip, and I never came back, or I came back over a period of many years. At any rate, my mind was pretty open then. Actually, very open. There was like a little church in Ann Arbor off of South University and Forest Avenue, up near and just south of Washtenaw Avenue. It's on a little dogleg. I think it might have been called the Campus Chapel or something like that. Anyway, it was left open all night long, which was amazing, and certainly today it would be super amazing. No one was there late at night except sometimes me. I would be up late nights, just as I am today, up early mornings. Anyway, I would go there at times when all else was closed, or when I wanted to be alone and just play music. And in that chapel they had a small grand piano in the basement and a real organ console up in the chapel. I would play those, or I at least would play at those. I can't really play the piano, but that was not the point back then, at least on those nights. I wasn't playing the piano or the organ. I was playing music, kind of music from my soul. Life, was squeezing me, and in those late nights I was playing music like some animal calling out to life. It was some kind of special times. I really loved playing that church organ because that many different voices and registers would pierce my mind. It would set up all kinds of resonances that transported me. In fact, I once owned a large Hammond B3, a big jazz organ. Weighs, 450 pounds or something like that, a lot. And I owned it for some time when I lived in a small room. It took up almost my entire room until they came and repossessed it for lack of payment. I just ran out of money, and at that time I wasn't willing to work. It was all I could do back then to monitor the changes in my consciousness each day. Anyway, late nights I would go to that chapel. I would play my heart out. And it really was beautiful music, at least to me, but I will allow that it might have sounded strange to others. I did this for years, and no one else was ever there. I did have quite another and different experience at the University of Michigan School of Music at Ann Arbor. One time I wandered through the music school, and there were like dozens of small practice rooms, each with a piano, and most of those rooms were completely empty of students. They just were there. So as I walked through the halls, the sounds of different instruments filled my ears. And this was music, and I felt in myself music well up within me. So, it became filled with like emotion, feelings. I slipped into one of the empty rooms, closed the door behind me and sat down and played just as I would at the student chapel, only this time apparently I wasn't alone, because I had no real piano technique, and I was kind of forced to help my fingers find their way along the keyboard just by listening. Still, I played very carefully, searching for each note. And I played what I was feeling. It came from deep inside. I did not just, stop and think how this might sound to someone else, or whether this was in some acceptable music style or another. I just played and poured out my feelings. And I can't say, really, that this was happy music. because I had no way to measure that. It was music of me at the time. And with each note and chord, I built a kind of sound image in my mind, at least representing my state of mind. And I'm sure that the sounds could appear unconventional to anyone listening in, as they were. They came out of my heart, and they fit my feelings and my mind. And sure enough, as luck would have it, there was a listener, although I was not playing very loud. But I was jolted out of my mood by a knocking at the tiny glass window in the door, and then the opening of the door. It was some kind of woman official for the school. She asked me what I was doing, and I said, well, I was playing the piano. And she says, we have no time for music of that sort in this school. Some of us have work to do. You'll have to leave now. That's what she said, and somehow she was objecting to the kind of music I was playing, or to the way I was playing it. Her subtext seemed to be that that my music was disturbing, not because it was too loud, but because it was too unorthodox. It was as if I were not welcome there because the mental journey that I was on at the time and the music that it induced was troubling to other people. Maybe it was. How she knew I was not a music student, I have no idea. Perhaps it was because I couldn't play the piano. But I took it that my music and my mind was hard for others to hear, and so I left. And I tell this story because I'm getting around to my topic of practice and practicing. There's no such thing as like a standard electrical voltage. Many of us know that. That's why we have voltage regulators, surge protectors and all that kind of stuff. Electricity surges, it ebbs and it flows, and we try to control it as best we can. In a similar way, our internal energy moves in spurts and lags, cycles. Much like electricity, life brings moments of great clarity when there's energy for all kinds of ideas and actions, plus also moments that kind of drag us into darkness. I guess what I'm saying is that the energy grid upon which our being is based also ebbs and flows. It's anything but just constant. In fact, we all know that change is the order. It's the only constant, and we're kind of at the mercy of our own energy life flow, bobbing around in its ups and downs. I explored this idea when I began learning to play the piano on those late nights back in the 1960s. I also had an upright piano in kind of a very narrow hallway to my room at 114 North Division in Ann Arbor. Learning to play the piano requires practice, and lots of it, but how does practice really work? Is there something more to practice than just the benefit of rote memory? Endlessly repeated actions on a keyboard. So I found that indeed there was another factor, and that's what I want to talk about. The idea of piano practice, or any kind of practice, is nothing more than a method of exercising, being present, and waiting for the will of the moment, to have variations so that we can develop confidence, waiting for those energy surges of clarity or lack of clarity, as I mentioned. What is accidental almost, these surges of energy, we can use them to build confidence and willpower. Energy and insight comes in blossoms and streams. It's not regulated. I would spend a long practice time late those nights waiting for the moments of forward push, for the moments of opening, with the mind open, and then I would cling kind of, as close as I could to the new ground that was opening into me, and that's how I learned. During those moments of openness, I can see to do anything, piano or otherwise. The mind is open in those surging moments. At those times there's a way in, and at those times I can see into myself and perhaps learn something new. For me, that's the true result of practice, taking advantage of open moments to dart through or dart past where we were before and to move into new ground, some new, like a passageway to our future. We build a habit through practice. We gain ground by taking up the slack as we leap ahead through those kind of open gaps of insight. We know that good habits are learned through practice, but I'm trying to explain how practice might actually work. Just as the practice of waiting for energy or these spirit surges can benefit piano playing, wait for the moments when the mind is open and we can actually play creatively and then it closes. That same waiting practice style can allow us to take advantage of these natural gaps or energy surges for many other uses. The same kind of attention that we might pay to piano practice is worth paying in our mind training work, in our Dharma practice. Just sitting there, being alert, things happen. Gaps or openings naturally occur, and if we pay attention, we can be there to take note of them. That too is practicing. And this is maybe more commonly, this is called mind practice or meditation. Meditation is just the sort of mind practice that I'm discussing here. In basic meditation, we sit there and we attempt to allow the mind to come to rest. When we find ourselves distracted, we gently bring the mind back to rest once again. Sure, it can be boring, and it really is just practicing, but we are building a habit that will benefit us in everything we do later. When we're not on the cushion, when we're in what's called post-meditation, off the cushion. Once we have a habit of catching our own distractions in real life and bringing our attention back to what we want to be accomplishing, the merits of meditation become clearer to us. It takes time, and it takes those moments or surges of opening during practice when resting the mind is suddenly easier, or even easy. The moments of real energy, moments of clarity that come in the normal course of life, that's when the most real progress is made. Anyway, I feel that practice is the process of forming a habit, imprinting, by repetition, and taking advantage of whatever natural openings in our mind present themselves. In those open moments, we leap through those gaps into our future and we lock it down, make it our own. This is really what practice is about, waiting for those moments and then confirming that what we see and experience as it comes. This is why, and this is how I practice anything. The point of meditation practice is not to suddenly experience light or even to get some mental relaxation or time out, R&R. The point is to creatively build a habit through careful practice, a habit that will in time become automatic, and it will be as useful to us in our day-to-day life as it is sitting in meditation.